Baldur's Gate 3 has taken the gaming community by storm, allowing players to experience the thrill and magic of Dungeons & Dragons on screen. In accordance to the 5th edition rule set of the tabletop game, Baldur's Gate 3 features 12 playable classes, all with their own subclasses. While some classes in Baldur's Gate 3 are clearly better than others, some remain underutilized and underrated. This can be for a number of reasons, from a lack of interest in the power fantasy that these classes provide to a preconceived weakness in Baldur's Gate itself, D&D, or other similar games. Hello and welcome back to Game Rant. I'm Casey, and today we're going to be going over the most underrated classes in Baldur's Gate 3. At number 5, we've got the Wizard. Compared with the other magical classes such as Warlock and Sorcerer, the latter of which is one of the most popular classes in the game, Wizards in Baldur's Gate 3 are vastly underrated. Two things that Wizards are known for are being extremely squishy and damaging their allies with chaotic AoE spells. However, these cons should not discourage players from testing out the arcane knowledge of Wizards. Wizards have 8 subclasses to choose from in Baldur's Gate 3, with these being different schools of magic, but they're only selected at level 2 instead of during the initial character creation. They also have the most spells available in the game and the most spell slots to match. With so many subclasses and spells, players can have radically different experiences when playing as a wizard, while also some of the highest damage in the game. At number 4, we've got the Druid. Despite allowing players to take on the form of animals, the Druid class in Baldur's Gate 3 is fairly underrated, perhaps as it's a class that excels at nothing in particular while performing well across the board. As a Druid, players can take on the role of a tank by becoming a bear, or they can focus more on supporting their allies or even dealing decent damage. There are 3 Druid subclasses in Baldur's Gate 3, known as Druid Circles, and these allow players to focus on different aspects of nature, wielding power in various ways. One of the most fun subclasses is the Circle of the Moon, which is all about animals and shape-shifting into them. Ironically, the other 2 subclasses are just as underrated as the Druid class as a whole. At number 3, we've got the Barbarian. The word Barbarian itself carries negative connotations, and thus, when creating a character in Baldur's Gate 3, players tend to overlook this class in favor of those that provide a more impressive power fantasy. However, Barbarians are actually underrated, as the ability to throw things and creatures plays a surprisingly big part in the game, and this is one thing that they excel at. If enemies are standing near a cliff or a pool of lava, Barbarians are going to have an easy time shoving or throwing them to their doom with their high strength. The highlight of playing as a Barbarian and their greatest strength is their ability to become enraged, gaining significant combat buffs for a duration. Players might also enjoy the Barbarian's simplistic but humorous approach to certain dilemmas outside of combat, as showcased at the start of the game. At number 2, we've got the Monk. One class that's often forgotten about in both Dungeons & Dragons and Baldur's Gate 3 is the Monk class, and it's certainly not considered strong either. Monks mostly rely on dexterity and wisdom, and work best with simple weapons and armor, which may not be appealing to players who want to make use of the best gear in Baldur's Gate 3. Monks also have a unique action mechanic where they consume key points, and this is something that may not appeal to new players. There are 3 monk subclasses: Way of the Open Hand, Way of the Shadow, and Way of the 4 Elements. The last of these pretty much allowing players to roleplay as Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. To get the most out of the monk class and create a game-beating build, heading into combat unarmed is strangely the best option. And at number 1, we've got the Cleric. In the first major patch for Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios stated that Cleric is the least popular class to play as, and so, at least in some ways, it must be underrated by the community. While this can be down to players being more than happy to take the Cleric companion Shadowheart with them, and not feeling like they need another Cleric, this can't be the only reason for these tanky healers being the most underrated class in Baldur's Gate 3. The main reason for a lack of interest in Clerics is likely the fact that they are perceived as weak and boring in combat, with many players seeing them as glorified healers who don't do much else. However, by delving into the various Cleric subclasses, players will discover more martial and deceptive playstyles. And there you have it, folks, the most underrated classes in Baldur's Gate 3. Let us know in the comments what your favorite classes in Baldur's Gate 3 are, and which classes you think are underrated. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, be sure to visit GameRant.com for more top-notch gaming content. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take care for now.